Welcome to this Premier Training revision video, which is the third in the series that takes a look at the written tasks. In this video, we'll look at a good answer to the question we first posed in part 1. Firstly, let's remind ourselves of the question. If you'd prefer a hard copy of this, then please pause the video now so you can print a copy off. It's very tempting to write down the first thing that comes to mind. It's a good idea to write down ideas, but do it on some spare paper first. You need to organise your ideas before you can write a good answer. It's a good idea to start with some kind of introduction, that is, what you're going to be talking about. Or in other questions, you may say that you're writing because someone has asked you to, or because some figures need analysing. An introductory sentence sets the scene for what's to come next. Here, we're telling the reader that we'll be looking at legal and ethical issues, which is what the question requires. Next, we need to state what the problem is. And here, we haven't left it to chance that the reader will know. In fact, it can be better to write your answer as if the reader hasn't even seen the question. We then state what the concern is, followed by an explanation of money laundering. We've also stated that it's a criminal offence. Next, we consider one of the consequences, which is another legal issue. In this case, it may not be necessary to state the maximum penalty, but it doesn't harm your answer if you put it in, but only if you have time. Now we say what Heather should have done. As we're not told if there's a money laundering reporting officer, we should give both options. And now we've added the method of reporting to the National Crime Agency. Notice that we haven't used abbreviations, as you need to explain to the reader what each term is. However, if you refer to these more than once, you can write it out in full the first time and use the abbreviation subsequently. And it's important to say that Heather's actions weren't unethical, but how the manager's response has created an ethical problem. And because of this, there's a conflict of loyalty. So we then need to explain what this is. We continue with the manager's response. We start with the most obvious fundamental principle, followed by an explanation. We've then stated a possible threat and used the correct technical language to describe it, which, if you remember, was one of the requirements of the question. The question also implied that there should be more than one fundamental principle. Here, there are two more with the all-important explanation. Note that not all the fundamental principles need mentioning because some of them are irrelevant. The question asked us to explain all the issues involved, but didn't specify whether they were Heather's issues or her manager's, so we need to deal with them both. And in this paragraph, we deal with Heather's ethical issues. We've mentioned objectivity again, however, because we've explained this before, we don't need to explain it again. And we've included a threat with an explanation. In fact, two explanations. Now we come to the final part of the question, the safeguards. You should know what safeguards are, but those printed in the book are unlikely to be relevant to this scenario. You'll need to analyse the situation and come up with some relevant answers. Simply putting policies and procedures won't get any marks, and the examiner will want to know what the policies and procedures are about, and will also want to see that they're relevant to the scenario. Once we're happy with our answer, we need to check that we've covered everything in the question, so let's look at it again. We'll just look at what the question asks us to do rather than the whole scenario. We've dealt with more than one legal issue and more than one ethical issue. We've included several fundamental principles and some threats. And we've said what Heather should do and included several safeguards. But most importantly, we've explained everything. I hope this series of videos has been helpful, and remember that with a little preparation and attention to detail, there's nothing to worry about in these tasks. Thanks for watching.